Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 16th of February. I'm Derek Clark, as ever, and I'm delighted to say we're joined this morning by Adam Thornton. How are we getting on, Adam?
Not bad, thank you, Derek. How are you?
Absolutely sensational. Yeah, another day closer to getting to see Rangers back in action, of course, and there's plenty to talk about. Before we do that, though, folks, just as you know the drill by now, quick word for our sponsors. First of all, Seneca Hair Restoration. They're the #1 hair transplant group in Europe, no less. So if you want to reinvigorate the top of your cranium, then these are the guys to go to, and I've stuck the links to their social media channels and the website in the description box. Do go check them out. A quick word as well for the offer we've got on the website just now. As we can see, Jonny is just about to join the stream. He's just in the background there. There he is. Hey, how's it going, Jonny?
Good. Just a little bit late.
No problem. Well, that's we'll crack on regardless. What I was going to say is we've got that tremendous offer on the website just now. Not only that, but we're giving away 2 tickets to the League Cup final later this month. All you have to do is sign up to the Rangers Review. Just £1 for 3 months worth of content. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe and you'll be entered into the draw for those 2 tickets. And if you're already a subscriber, you should have received an email as to how you can also put your name in the hat for those 2 tickets as well. It may be in your junk mail, so do go check that out if that is the case. Right, let's talk Rangers. Lots to talk about. Michael Beal has given an interview to Rangers TV. 50 minutes long, no less. I do urge you to go and check it out if you get the chance, folks. It is absolutely fantastic. Lots of interesting takeaways from that. One that really stood out for me was that the Rangers manager admitted that there's too many first-team players on their books. He insists he'll look to trim the squad in the summer when the transfer window reopens. I'll read you some of the quotes of what he said. He said, we have too many players at this moment in time, in my opinion. There's a reason why we've carried 1 or 2 due to injuries. To supplement that, when I say too many, I look at the amount of boys we've got out on loan right now too. So when pre-season starts, they're all back in the building. I want players to have real clarity on their role in the squad. It's difficult the more players you have. If I have a look in the top leagues and top teams, you look at Arsenal at the minute, they've had the most consistent 11. I know from history, being at Liverpool when they won, that was the case as well. When we won a league, we had a core of 7 or 8 that played. For me, with the amount of subs that we can have now in the matchday squad, I want everyone to feel involved and engaged in the squad. I want everyone to feel like their best days are in front of them and they know that what the pecking order is to get in the team. They know what role they've got. Adam, I'll come to you first. What do you make of those comments? Would you agree that the squad needs a bit of trimming come the summertime? But I think we'd be all in agreement it needs new faces as well.
Yeah, I think that's the catch-22, isn't it? We're lucky, I guess, in a sense that we do have 8 or 9 players coming out of contract. Some we would prefer weren't out of contract, but some I think most are quite happy to see go. I think the squad is too big and it feels quite weird considering how little choices we've had in terms of the injuries that we've had. He has pretty much played the same back 4 since he joined, which has its pros and has its cons. But I think absolutely the squad is too big. There is that debate about numbers versus quality, which I think is absolutely fair when you look at some of the players that we have who aren't contributing and are on a decent wage or are bought for decent money. Then I think we almost discount them as fans, don't we? And we say, well, they're leaving or they're not very good or we haven't seen them for ages, therefore they're not part of the squad. They're still getting a wage. That's how that works, and they're still there in training every day. So 100%, I think he needs to get to a point probably where he's got 18 to 20 first team senior pros that he can rely on and then supplement the remaining 4 or 5 spots with the youngsters such as Lowry, King, etc. So I think when you look at it that way, and as you said, players coming back from loans, etc., then we are way too big. I think we can't be far off 30 first team players just now, so that does need to come down quite dramatically, as well as bringing in that quality that we all hope in the summer.
Yeah, too bloated for you, Jonny. Do you think? And I mean, what sort of players? Adam mentioned the out of contract ones. I think most are likely to be leaving the club. You'd imagine. I guess would there be one or two more that you think that the days at Ibrox are numbered?
Yeah, I think fundamentally Michael Beal gave away so many hints in that interview. I watched it twice. I'll probably watch it again today because I felt like there's about 10 articles in that piece. Joshua, and he's off on holiday, but I would be immediately saying, Josh, you need to go and watch that 2 or 3 times to just kind of grasp all the little tidbits that are in it. It's clear that he's also talking about refreshing the squad to bring in youth. He mentions that there's a new sort of core that's come in with Raskin, with Cantwell, and he mentions a few other players and how that's kind of changed the profile of the team and the squad, made a bit younger, added a bit of legs. I think that's going to be a key thing in the summer. The team must evolve, and Michael Beal specifically says that every team must change, and this team hasn't evolved since 2018. Fundamentally, it's not really changed. So I think some tough decisions are going to have to be made, and to be honest, those decisions should have been made last summer. You know, Allan McGregor should have left last summer. It was a perfect time for him to go as a Scottish Cup winner when he had that standing ovation. I think there's an argument that Stephen Davis should have gone last summer. I find it quite critical. Quite difficult to be critical of Stephen Davis in this regard because he's a legend and he's given so much. And I think there's a possibility he could still offer something. But at the same time, I just almost think this is an end of an era, and you need to kind of like just change it up.
Yeah,
it's a changing of the guard that's required. So it's a difficult one. If someone turns around at me and says Stephen Davis is going to sign a new deal, I wouldn't be angry about it. But at the same time, he is going to have to cut players from the squad somewhere to kind of create that tight, intense squad that we know that he's looking for, where it's cutthroat battles for places. But there was, regardless of that, Derek, there was just so much in the interview, so much about transfers. You know, he's talking about, once again, reiterating that he's looking for a goalkeeper and looking for a striker, talking about being much more forensic in the transfer market, about planning and sticking to the plan. He said that in the past, things come up in the transfer window that change what you want to do, and he doesn't like that. He wants to get back to a much more organised window where you have targets that you know that you want and you go and get them, and that's it. And you don't get tempted by the potential riches of going for an Aaron Ramsey or an Amad Diallo on the last day. He didn't mention those players, but I'm pretty sure that's the kind of deal that he's talking about. Those ones that you wouldn't have expected that come up because of the various issues around different clubs around Europe that make it possible to pull off transfers like that. And I thought that was very interesting and good to hear, because there's been too much waste in transfers. And I think Rangers do need to be a bit more strategic. So those are the two things that kind of jumped out at me. On top of the other element, I think when he talked about the sort of the imaginary Rangers billboard with the Rangers team and the key players, he mentioned Nico Raskin, Ryan Kent, Tom Lawrence, which I think is quite telling. I might ask him about that in the press conference today. And who was the other player, Derek? You have to remind me.
He mentioned Todd Cantwell as well. Was
Cantwell, yeah. So, I mean, that tells you a little bit about, I think, how he sees the side and who the men are going to be going forward.
Yeah, he did touch on that. He says he hinted at his vision of what his team wants to look like in the coming years. And interestingly, he does mention, Kent, he said, I think if there was a big billboard outside of Ibrox saying, what does this Rangers team look like? You can only play the way those players allow you to play. Our team is always to be a team that has a lot of relationships on the pitch. It's got to have a lot of combination players. You've got to give them some freedom. When I think of this team, I'm saying now that you have Ryan Kent, Raskin, Tom Lawrence, Todd Cantwell, or whoever you want to put on this billboard in terms of that's the Rangers that's going to be here in the next 4 or 5 years. Interesting, you mentioned Kent there. Adam, how would you rate your confidence levels that he's going to sign a new deal at this time of day? Interestingly, I thought he mentioned him there. You of the two, I think we spoke before about the Morelos and Kent contract situations, but for Kent, I think for most supporters, that is certainly the one that most would like to see sign up.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I think I'm now at the stage though where it gets mentioned every week. and and the sort of, but it gets mentioned by Michael Beal every week. He has asked the question, which is fair enough. But the inference is always great guy, want to build a team around him. This will be fantastic. Okay, well we're now in like the 8th, 9th, 10th week of that. When is it going to happen? If all the signs are pointing towards this, what are we waiting on? That's the thing that I start to find a little bit confusing right now. Ryan Kent is saying in interviews, yeah, really happy, love the manager, blah blah blah. Okay, well, what are we waiting on? Is this just a staying out contest to try and get the best deal for the club or the best deal for the player? I think if you were to nail them both to the wall, they'd both say we want to keep him and I want to stay. So it's just that point now where I'm at. What's the debate? Is there any more debate about it? I don't think there is, and therefore why is it not happening? But 100%. I would like to see him stay now. I was sort of in the same mindset maybe 6 months ago, where time for a big refresh. Let's get all of these players out that are coming to the end of their time, etc. But I would say Kent is the one for me within the last 4 to 6 weeks that has jumped back up again. Morelos' form, etc., has been great. History probably tells us that doesn't last much longer than a few months. So that's a sort of different debate. It's also interesting when he said in that billboard thing about he'd like us to play vertically a little bit more. So we always look at that game against Hearts or any game against Hearts and we say we can't really do that against most teams because they'll come out, we can counter-attack, etc. But if he can find a way, like Liverpool did for a couple of years ago, if he can find a way to play vertically, play high energy against low blocks, get the ball forward in a kind of quicker way than we have done in the past, then that'd be really interesting to see. And that probably leads you to think some of the players that we've brought in absolutely can be crucial, but we might be looking for a bit more pace and maybe decisive energy or decisive finishing power in the final third. So that'll be one to look out for in the summer.
Yeah, that interesting point made by Tim Sharp. A couple of interesting points just on the back of that. It says on Kent's contract situation, do we pay anything to Liverpool if he extends his contract? Might be letting it run out, then re-sign him. I'm not sure that's the case. If there's anything within that contract that suggests that. And he also says that when talking about that billboard, Jonny, no Tillman. Interesting, never mentioned Malik Tillman. Is that just being coy? Perhaps he is a Bayern Munich player at the end of the day. I think everyone's in agreement that we'd love to see him sign a permanent contract, but can we read too much into why I never mentioned Tillman there, do you think?
Nah, to be honest, Eric, I think it's quite dangerous. Although it's a topic, I think Beal was just kind of thinking big picture about the current team. So I don't actually think it was a hint or anything like that. Having read back the quotes and watched it twice now, I don't think there's anything in there with Malik Tillman. But I do think if you listen to Malik Tillman talking in kicker, you get the sense that he's a lad who I think if Bayern Munich want him back, he'll go to Bayern Munich. He's been there since he was a kid, and ultimately they're one of the biggest clubs in Europe. And should they offer him a pathway, I'd be obviously expecting him to take that. But if they don't, then Rangers absolutely have to be at the front of the queue. I think we're all clear about that.
Yeah,
I think there's also a debate there as well that no one really seems to talk about is, do we have 5 million for Malik Tillman based on the other areas of the team? The manager keeps talking about, I need a goalkeeper, I need a striker in the summer. Not going to get much change out of 5 million for that, I don't think personally. So do we then have another 5 million for Tillman? Is that money already set aside? Can we see us spending upwards of 10 million without a big sale? There's all these things, I guess, that Ross Wilson and Michael Beal will be looking at, because if you look at the makeup of the squad, regardless of Tillman the player and what he brings, that's fine. But we do have a few other players in that position that can play there. Hadji, Lawrence, Lowry, Cantwell, etc. So might be one of those debates that great player, would be great to have him, but are there other areas of the team that maybe need more priority if we have limited funds? I know that's not something that anyone wants to hear, but there could be that side of it as well.
One thing I would say back to that, sorry Derek to interrupt, but one thing I would say was he specifically mentioned a number of players who he described as hybrids, and this is his way of creating a tight squad but having loads of options.
Yep.
And he did say Malik Tillman amongst them, being someone who can play a number of positions. And I think we've seen that. He can play wide on the right, he can play number 8, he can play number 10. I think he can play even up front because of his physical presence. But I think Michael Beale's actually been very clever in pinpointing him as a number 8, because I think what we're seeing now is that rampaging ball carrying ability, where he's almost like a tank running through the middle of the pitch. I've not really seen anyone have that since Paul Gascoigne at Rangers. If you can think of somebody else, lads, jump in. But you saw against Partick, listen, every time he got the ball and started to run, they couldn't get near him. Couldn't get near him. Not seen that for a long, long time.
Yeah. I was going to put the point to you, Adam, based on what you just said there. If you had £5 million, playing devil's advocate, you're Michael Beal, you get £5 million, buy Malik Tillman, but then you have
to give him £5 million, Derek.
But then you're bringing in Freeze. You're bringing in Freeze to bolster the squad. What are you doing there?
That's the tricky part, isn't it? I would say the need for goals, or the need for a striker, is maybe bigger than the need for Malik Tillman. If I'm being honest, if that is all we have in that £5 million, if there is a deal to be done, like someone said in the comments, if we can get money for Kamara, maybe either get players off the wage bill that aren't contributing, or we can get some money for players that are maybe getting closer to 30. We get decent money for them, and then we have the sort of whole pie. Then absolutely we can deal with that. But in a sort of straight shootout, if we're saying, do we want a goalkeeper and a striker, or do we spend the money on Malik Tillman? I think I'm probably verging towards goalkeeper and striker. But again, it's not set in stone. We don't know. We could spend that £5 million on a goalkeeper and striker, and they could be hopeless, and then that looks like a really silly bit of business as well. But I would say the need for goalkeeper and striker is bigger than the need for Tillman. However, as Jonny said, he has been absolutely fantastic. I think I'm on record as saying he's 100% the best 20-year-old I've seen at Ibrox since Ferguson. So that's 25 years. So possibly that trumps everything. And you think, let's go and get the good player. However, as Jonny said, it sounds like Michael Beal is more thinking about long-term squad building rather than great player. Let's try and get him in and make other things work. So yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, and just to point out, we don't have time for the pie chat, Adam. That is
sorry, Jenny.
Right, let's touch. Lots of comments coming in here at the moment. That's one or two that wanted to touch on. This was a report suggesting Rangers, of course, were touched on needing a goalkeeper in the summer. Maka says, morning all, is Angus Gunn a good option as number 1? He has been linked with the club. He's at Norwich City, son of former Scotland goalkeeper Brian Gunn, no less. So certainly a good upbringing with regards to that. I've not heard anything as to this. There's going to be a number of goalkeepers linked, Jonny, between now and the summertime. Angus Gunn, have you seen much of him? Would you be opposed to seeing him pitch up at Ibrox at all?
I've not seen an awful lot of Angus Gunn, I have to be honest. I saw a lot more of his dad. Probably ages me quite significantly. But, you know, I have a belief that this is probably something in this in terms of Rangers having looked at him. How firm it is, you know, is anybody's guess. Rangers are tight on transfers nowadays, and you're not getting much out of anyone. He's a guy who has got Premier League experience, has got some big moves in his background, so he's clearly got talent. I think Rangers need someone who is going to come in and be the number 1 for the next 4 or 5 years, whoever that is. Is Angus Gunn the man? It's not a name that fills me with immediate acknowledgement and sense that that's the deal done. That's it. Brilliant. Perfect. You know, when I looked at Nico Raskin and you looked a little bit at his stats and his clips, you thought, yep, that's looking good. Not feeling that same way about Angus Gunn, but I've not looked at him enough to probably give you a full account of what his capabilities are. One thing I'll say, Derek, is every single Rangers fan that's on this chat has been spoiled. Doesn't matter what age they are. We've had good keepers in the recent history and amazing keepers going back. Obviously, younger guys who went through the journey didn't see the normal standard, but then they did get to enjoy Allan McGregor for the last few years. So we know that Rangers goalkeeper is always a position of great personality, great quality. I think back to Chris Woods, Andy Gorham, Stefan Kloss, even the backups at Rangers. Antti Niemi was backup, you know, were high quality. The guy Ronald Vaturus like one of the weaker goalies Rangers have had in the last 30 years. Dutch international, absolutely superb with the ball at his feet. What a keeper he'd be now. He'd be worth a fortune because he was a guy that he could play outfield, frankly. There's just reams of them that have been through the club, and anyone that comes in with that history on their backs, so they have to be able to carry it. It's an important position, and that's why Rangers have to get that one right.
Interesting. Ian McDougall raises a good point. He says, living in Norwich, that Norwich fans do like him a lot and are aware of Rangers' interest. It's been reported in the papers here too. Have you seen much of him, Adam? No, but just the shake of the head tells it all.
I haven't at all. Like Jonny says, though, in terms of gut feeling and profile, I feel like it could go either way. But I just think with a keeper, it's not at our level. Bringing in a good keeper isn't really an expensive thing. I don't think there are keepers in Austria, Switzerland, Czech Republic, etc. that are playing at the sort of top end of the leagues that you'll be getting for a few million quid. So it's the gamble there of British football, because as someone said in the comments, you need a goalkeeper with character. I think that's the thing that people struggle with John McLaughlin, as he's not as maybe doesn't exude that air of character or command and presence with the defence. So you do need all of that. But at the same time, I think you can get a keeper for a relatively decent amount of money that sort of has that. It is still a bit of an unfancied position unless you're at the sort of top end, top 5 leagues, etc. So it would depend on that deal. I haven't seen a lot of Angus Gunn. I know that he sort of fell out of favour at Southampton, went back to Norwich and has been sort of in and out there. I don't know a huge amount about him. I don't know what the deal would be, whether he's out of contract, all that sort of stuff. But I do think it is a difficult position to fill, but I don't think there will be a lot. I don't think we'll be short of options, should I say. I think there should be, if we cast the net far enough, there should be a fair amount of keepers with the quality that we need.
He does fit into the Michael Beal mould in terms of what he outlined in this interview last night. And again, there was so much in this interview, guys. I stress that you go and watch it, because 50 minutes with Michael Beal, you know it's going to be gold, and it was. And he talked about how Rangers have got 2 transfer focuses. One, young players before they get good enough that the top 4 or 5 leagues come in for them, when it gets too expensive for the club. And number 2, players who have come through with enormous talent, but have then dropped off or had a difficult period in some way. Players that can be righted, who are going down the wrong path. And if you look at Angus Gunn, you could argue that he does absolutely fill that mould. He's a guy that's not even played, or certainly he's only just played just over 100 games. He's 27 years old. Yeah. So he's a guy that's not really settled anywhere in his career and been first choice or had a sustained run. But his talent has got him several big moves. You know, he's gone from Manchester United to Southampton for £13.5 million. It's significant. He's an England under 16 international, under 17, under 19, under 20, and 12 caps at under 21. So this is a guy at 6'5" who I think would be considered at a very, very important point in his career. And maybe he kind of fits that mold that Michael Beal would take someone who had all that promise and turn them around. I'm still not convinced, but that kind of would maybe the argument.
Yeah. Ian says, do you remember the last keeper we got from Norwich? That was a certain Chris Woods, if I recall correctly. And just some top goalkeepers being suggested. Stephen Gillespie says, Graham Roberts, top keeper for me. Absolutely was sensational between the sticks back in the day. Denzel agrees with you, Adam. He says, I agree with Adam, should really be trolling the English leagues for player price inflation runs right through the English game. Better deals elsewhere. And also Positive Vibe says, what about Shamal George as a keeper? That he has been linked also currently at Livingston, formerly on the books of Liverpool. So Michael Beal will be well aware of Shamal George, came through the youth ranks there, has had a number of loans down south and joined Livingston last summer.
See, if we're talking about Scotland, Derek, the one keeper I've been impressed with is Kel Roos. I don't think Rangers should go for him, but he's the Aberdeen goalie is by far the best keeper in Scotland at the moment in terms of the numbers by a mile. he stands out. So he's definitely the one, if you were looking at Scotland or you're looking for a cheaper option, that you would go for, in my view. Shamal George is fine, is good. I don't have anything negative to say about him, but I think if you were going in Scotland, it would be Roos.
Yeah. Is there anyone in Scotland, Adam, that you would be happy Rangers acquiring in the summertime?
Yeah, probably not, to be honest. I think I agree. Kyle Roos has done quite well. I don't know if he's been injured recently or not, but he has done quite well. However, it's really difficult. Shamal George obviously has been put up there, and I know there's lots of graphs and things flying about Twitter. I think it's quite difficult to judge goalkeepers and maybe central defenders on that type of thing, because volume of chances coming against them versus actual quality is a bit of a different thing to analyse. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't think there's anybody that would stick out. But again, like I said, it could be conceivable you get an unfancied player, someone who is out with a luck, maybe like Angus Gunn, who comes in and does well. 27 is not that old in terms of a goalkeeper. So you just never know what's going to happen. It is just such a strangely unique position that I don't know if anyone. I don't know how they scout for it, to be honest. I don't know. I can't even begin to imagine sort of what they look for, because making saves is fine, but what context is it? Is it the only save you're making in that 90 minutes, or are you getting peppered every single game and you're making 2 or 3 saves that make the highlights and you look a little bit better? What you like with the ball? If you one game you could have 35 touches for Rangers, whereas you might only get 5 if you're playing for Aberdeen. All these type of things, I find it really, really difficult to look at a keeper playing for another team and say they would be great for us. And it's the same with McLaughlin and McGregor. They are both chalk and cheese. So how do you decide? Because one has great points, one has good points. How do you balance all that together? It's a really difficult thing. I don't envy the scouting team having to find a keeper that, particularly like Jonny said, the history that we've got, try and find someone that can continue that. It's going to be a very, very difficult challenge, but at the same time, I think financially it shouldn't be out with our scope.
Yeah, and of course the answer might be closer to home in the building already. Louise Wise says Beal said he'll give McCrory a chance when fit, and that's echoed by Pete Lawrence. He says McCrory is a big hope for me, promising against Celtic that time. He played, and also against Alishkert, if you can remember as well, when he came in when COVID ravaged the squad last season. Right, before we wrap up, of course, just a reminder of our ticket giveaway we've got on the site just now. We've got 2 tickets to give away for the League Cup final on the 26th of February. All you have to do is sign up to the Rangers Review, just £1 for 3 months worth of content. Go and head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up, and you'll be entered into that draw. And it's also available to subscribers. If you had signed up before the offer, you should have an email in your junk folder or your main inbox as well. So do go have a look around. And Randy Marsh gets in touch all the way from Oz. He says that my Australian mate is coming to Scotland for the final Old Firm game of the season. What's the best way for him to try to get a ticket? Boy's obsessed with the famous. Well, there you go, Randy. Get him to sign up to the Rangers Review, and you'll be entered into the draw.
No, I think it's for the final Old Firm game, so it's probably.
I misread that. Yeah. Good luck then in that case.
Yes,
because they are like gold dust. Just before we wrap up as well, the press conference taking place this afternoon at New Edmondson House. Michael Beal and Yanis Hadji being put up for the press, looking ahead to that game against Livingston at the weekend. Adam, before we wrap up, that's a tricky game. We've seen at the start of the season when Rangers went there, they had to rely on a late flurry to get the better of Davy Martindale's team. They're always well organised. The pitch also comes into effect over there. It's not going to be an easy game.
No, it absolutely won't, and it'll be really interesting to see what the manager does, given his comments at the weekend about the players behind the striker in terms of Cantwell, Tillman, etc. How they performed, what he was looking for from them. You'd imagine this would be a kind of relatively similar challenge, so it'll be interesting to see how things go. Livingston have been doing quite well. I know they've had a couple of defeats recently. Obviously, that Scottish Cup one's a bit of a sore one for them, so be interesting. It is a difficult place to go, but we do have a good record there, so I don't think we should be too fearful of it. But for me, it's going to be quite interesting to see the team. I'm expecting / hoping that Raskin just plays now. I think that seems
He's got
realistic. I think he just comes into the team. But this whole debate around Cantwell, Hadji, Sakala, who's coming in and who's playing more often or not, particularly with the cup final next weekend, is the big debate for me. It's a big talking point.
Yeah, it certainly is. Okie dokie, folks, that'll do us there. Big thanks to Adam for joining us this morning, and also to Jonny. If you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well and support the channel, you can do that. That's totally free. And you never miss a video when we go live if you just click on the bell. Around 11,500 of you now subscribing, so thanks very much for doing so. We'll be back again tomorrow, myself and Chris Jack, to review today's press conference and look ahead to that big one over at the Tony Macaroni. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.